Juliet Harper had always chased storms, literal ones that ripped across the Midwest plains of her Kansas childhood, and the metaphorical kind that simmered in the veins of every story she hunted as a freelance journalist back in New York. At 34, with a resume etched in bylines from The Atlantic to Vice, she was the woman who stared down corrupt politicians and whispered sources in war zones. But nothing had prepared her for the tempest brewing in her own bloodline, pulling her across the Atlantic to Seville, Spain, in the sweltering summer of 2025. It started with a faded letter, yellowed like old regrets, tucked into the lining of her late grandmother's antique hope chest. Mi hija, it began in shaky Spanish-English hybrid, addressed to Juliet's mother, Elena. The secret I buried in Seville will find you one day. For your daughter's sake, let it stay buried. Elena, ever the stoic Midwestern matriarch with her starched blouses and unyielding Catholic rosary, had burned the letter without a word. But Juliet, rummaging through the attic after Elena's 60th birthday toast gone sour with too much boxed wine, found the ashes and pieced together enough to book a one-way ticket. Seville wasn't the sun-drenched postcard her family romanticized from their annual Garcia Harper reunions, rosy tales of flamenco skirts and tapas under orange trees, all glossing over the immigrant grit that had launched her grandparents from Andalusian poverty to Kansas wheat fields in the 70s. No, the real Seville hit Juliet like a sirocco wind, labyrinthine alleys thick with the scent of jasmine and exhaust, where Gothic spires pierced skies that shifted from azure to bruised purple in hours. She arrived in late June, jet-lagged and armored in her black jeans and scuffed Doc Martens, checking into a cramped Airbnb in the Triana neighborhood. The host, a wiry old man named Paco with a mustache like a broom bristle, eyed her American passport and muttered, "Cuidado, señorita. Secrets here have teeth." Her mission was simple: track down Abuela Rosa's buried secret. Elena had dismissed it as senile ramblings, but Juliet smelled a front-page exposé, maybe a lost inheritance, a wartime affair, something to humanize the woman who baked tamales tougher than her opinions on modern sins. Armed with a dog-eared address from the letter's postmark, a crumbling bar called El Sussurro in the Macarena district, Juliet dove in. Days blurred into a haze of café con leches and false leads, a bartender who shrugged about old ghosts, a parish priest who crossed himself at Rosa's name, and endless loops through the Alcazar gardens where tourists snapped selfies oblivious to the history seeping from the tiles. That's when she met Brielle. It was a Thursday, the kind where the heat clings like a bad habit, and Juliet had ducked into a tiny plaza off Calle Feria to escape a sudden squall. The fountain there bubbled like forgotten laughter, ringed by potted geraniums wilting under the assault. Brielle was sketching on a weathered moleskine, perched on the fountain's edge, her blonde curls escaping a loose bun like rays of misplaced sunlight. She was 28, with the effortless grace of someone who'd grown up dancing barefoot on these stones, freckles dusting her nose like cinnamon, blue eyes that held the Mediterranean's depth, and a sundress patterned in faded azulejo tiles that whispered of local artisan markets. Their eyes locked when Juliet's notebook tumbled from her bag, pages splaying open to reveal scribbled notes on Rosa's elusive trail. Brielle scooped it up, her fingers brushing Juliet's in a spark that felt less like static and more like fate's sly wink. "You're chasing shadows," Brielle said, her English laced with a soft Andalusian lilt, handing back the book. "This city eats secrets for breakfast. What's yours?" Juliet laughed, a rusty sound she hadn't heard from herself in months. "Just family baggage. You know how it is, ghosts that won't stay dead." She meant it lightly, but Brielle's gaze lingered, seeing the cracks in Juliet's armor, the faint scar above her eyebrow from a protest gone wrong in D.C., the way her shoulders hunched like she was always bracing for the next hit. They talked for hours that afternoon, the rain a curtain sealing them in. Brielle was a painter, scraping by on commissions for tourists and the occasional gallery showing in Madrid. Born in Seville to a Spanish mother and an Irish expat father who'd vanished when she was 6, she'd learned early that love was a watercolor, beautiful until it blurred. "Art's my rebellion," she confessed, flipping her sketchbook to reveal portraits of women in defiant poses, a flamenco dancer with fists clenched, a market vendor laughing mid-haggle. "Men here expect you to be the muse. I paint the fire they ignore." Juliet felt seen, truly seen, for the first time since her last breakup, a messy unraveling with a photo editor in Brooklyn who'd called her too intense before ghosting. Over shared plates of gazpacho and albondigas at a nearby taberna, they traded stories. Juliet's childhood dodging tornado sirens while dreaming of bylines, Brielle's solitary nights in her Triana studio, brush in hand, chasing colors that matched her unspoken longings. By dusk, as the rain tapered to a mist, Juliet realized she hadn't checked her phone in hours. No frantic emails from editors, no voicemails from Elena demanding updates. That night, Juliet couldn't sleep. The Airbnb's walls, papered in peeling flamenco posters, seemed to pulse with the city's heartbeat. She paced, replaying Brielle's laugh, the way her hand had grazed Juliet's knee under the table, innocent, yet electric. At dawn, she texted the number Brielle had scrawled on a napkin, "Coffee? I need a guide to these shadows." The reply came swift, "Only if you promise not to run from the light. Meet me at the Metropole Parasol. 10 a.m. What followed was a whirlwind that reshaped Seville's map in Juliet's mind. Brielle became her compass, leading her through hidden patios where laundry fluttered like prayer flags, to rooftop bars overlooking the Guadalquivir where sangria flowed like confessions. They hunted Rose's secret together, Brielle translating dusty parish records, charming cantankerous neighbors with her dimpled smile. In return, Juliet shared slices of her world, playlists of Lucinda Williams ballads blasting from her phone, stories of New York winters that bit harder than any Spanish chill. But beneath the flirtation, the lingering glances over gelato cones, the accidental brushes of shoulders on crowded buses, lurked Juliet's unspoken truth. She'd known she was gay since 16, kissing a cheerleader behind the bleachers at homecoming, but coming out had been a quiet rebellion, shared only with a handful of lovers and her estranged brother, Marco. Elena. She'd sooner invoke the saints than acknowledge it. Family sticks together, her mother preached, code for conform or be invisible. Juliet had built her life on that edge, out in the newsrooms, closeted at holidays, a tightrope act that left her hollow. With Brielle, the wire felt steadier. One evening, after a fruitless day chasing a lead to a long-shuttered orphanage, they collapsed on a bench in Maria Luisa Park. Fireflies danced like errant thoughts as Brielle leaned in, her breath warm against Juliet's ear. "You carry too much alone. Let me help, not just with the hunt, but with you." Their lips met then, soft and tentative, tasting of salt and possibility. It was a kiss that unraveled Juliet, pulling threads she'd knotted tight for years. For 2 weeks, they were a secret symphony, stolen mornings in Brielle's sunlit studio, where paint-smeared canvases became their bed, lazy afternoons wandering the barrio Santa Cruz, hands intertwined until footsteps approached. Juliet's leads on Rosa grew colder, a whispered rumor of a disgraced daughter hidden away, but no names, no faces. Yet with Brielle, the ache of failure softened. "Maybe the secret isn't what you find," Brielle murmured one night, tracing patterns on Juliet's back. "Maybe it's who you become while looking." Juliet wanted to believe her. God, she did. But on the summer solstice, as Seville swelled with Feria de San Juan bonfires, her phone buzzed with a text from Elena, "Families flying in. Your Aunt Sophia's anniversary. Be here or don't bother calling us yours." The words landed like embers. Juliet's extended clan, the Garcias and Harpers, a tapestry of accountants and teachers bound by blood and Bible study, were descending en masse. 20 relatives, all expecting the prodigal daughter to play the part, charming, straight, the golden child who'd made it without rocking the boat. Panic clawed at her throat. She hadn't told them about Brielle, about the way love had bloomed fierce and unapologetic in this foreign soil. "I have to go," she told Brielle that night, the bonfire's glow casting their shadows long across the riverbank. "Just for a few days. Then we figure this out, us, out loud." Brielle's eyes, usually so steady, flickered with doubt. "Secrets have a way of catching fire here, Juliet. Be careful what you feed them." The airport reunion was a scripted farce, Elena's arms enveloping Juliet in a hug stiff as starched linen, her perfume a cloying mix of Chanel No. 5 and unspoken expectations. "You look tired, Mija," Elena said, appraising her daughter's sun-kissed skin and the faint hickey blooming like a bruise on her collarbone, hidden, but not quite. Uncle Tomas clapped Juliet's back too hard, his booming laugh echoing through arrivals. The reporter returns. Tell us about those bullfights, did you charge one yet? The family piled into rented vans, a convoy snaking through Seville's evening traffic toward a sprawling villa in the hills outside town, rented for Aunt Sophia's ruby anniversary. It was all paella feasts and guitar strums, a veneer of joy over the undercurrent of judgment that had always simmered at gatherings like this. Juliet played her role flawlessly at first, charming the cousins with tales of New York subways and Spanish archives, dodging Aunt Sophia's probing questions about that nice boy from the Times she'd invented years ago as a shield. But her mind wandered to Brielle, texts exchanged in stolen moments, a photo of a half-finished canvas caption missing your storm. The guilt gnawed. Here she was, surrounded by blood ties thicker than the Jamon Iberico on the table, while the woman who'd cracked her open waited in the city's heart, alone. The crack came on the third night, during a post-dinner stroll through the villa's olive grove. Marco, her younger brother by 5 years, the golden boy who'd stayed in Kansas to run the family farm, cornered her by the stone wall. At 29, he was broader now, his flannel shirts swapped for button-downs, but his eyes still held that puppyish loyalty. Jules, what's eating you? Mom says you've been distant, code for you're hiding something again. She leaned against the wall, the rough stone biting through her blouse, and for a reckless second, considered spilling it all, the kiss that tasted like freedom, the love that felt like home in a place she'd never called one. But then Elena's voice carried from the terrace, Juliet. Venga, the toasts. And the moment calcified. Just the story, Marco. It's a dead end. Grandma's ghost is being stubborn. He nodded, but suspicion lingered in his squint. You know you can tell me anything, right? Like that summer in college. He trailed off, the memory of her tearful confession about her first girlfriend hanging unspoken between them. Marco had been her ally then, punching a frat boy who'd slung slurs at a campus rally. But time and Elena's influence had sanded his edges. Now he was a husband, a father-to-be, with a life that fit the family's mold. The next morning, Juliet slipped away under the pretense of chasing a lead. Her heart raced as she boarded a bus back to the city, the familiar rumble lulling her into fantasies of Brielle's arms. But Seville, that fickle lover, had other plans. As she stepped off in Plaza de España, her phone erupted, missed calls from Elena, a voicemail from Marco laced with urgency. Jules, call me. Now. It's about that letter. Dread pooled in her gut. She ducked into a chio stand, the sweet fry oil scent clashing with her nausea, and dialed. Marco's voice was tight, stripped of its usual drawl. We found something. Mom was cleaning your room at the villa, so your notebook. The one with the sketches. And the name, Brielle. Repeated, like a prayer. Juliet's world tilted. The notebook, Brielle's gift, filled not just with Rosa leads but doodles of their hands intertwined, pressed wildflowers from park benches, a half-erased map to her studio marked our secret spot. Marco, listen. No, you listen. Aunt Sophia's old friend from the parish. The one who knew Abuela. She came by last night, after you left. Said Rosa had a daughter, illegitimate, hidden away because she loved a woman. Back in the 50s, under Franco. It was the shame that broke her, Jules. Mom's piecing it together, connecting dots to you. They're freaking out. The chio turned to ash in her mouth. Rosa's secret wasn't gold or scandal, it was a mirror, reflecting Juliet's own buried truth. A lesbian love, silenced by fear, echoing across generations. Elena's voicemails confirmed it, shrill demands for explanation, veiled threats of disownment wrapped in prayers for her lost soul. Brielle's studio was a sanctuary of chaos, canvases stacked like fallen soldiers, the air thick with turpentine and possibility. She opened the door in paint-flecked overalls, her smile blooming like dawn, until she saw Juliet's face. What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. They collapsed onto the worn sofa, Juliet spilling the torrent, the letter, the family invasion, Marco's call. Brielle listened, her hand steady on Juliet's knee, but when the words ebbed, her expression hardened. So Rosa's story is yours. That's why you're here, not just curiosity, but running towards something you already know. Juliet nodded, tears hot on her cheeks. I thought I could keep you separate. Safe. But now. They're coming for answers, and if they find us. Brielle pulled her close, their foreheads touching, breath sinking like a shared pulse. Then we face it. Together. No more hiding. That resolve carried them through the afternoon, a frantic call to Marco pleading for time, tell Mom I need space to explain, and a walk along the river, where the Triana Bridge arched like a promise. But betrayal slithered in at dusk, via a text from an unknown number, I saw you two at the park. Kissing. Does Elena know her daughter's a Maricon? Smile for the family group chat. Attached was a blurry photo, time-stamped yesterday, Juliet and Brielle on that bench, lost in each other. The sender. Cousin Luis, the smug tech bro from Chicago who'd always sneered at her liberal nonsense. He'd been in Seville for the anniversary, tailing her like a shadow. Panic surged, but so did fury, a journalist's instinct to expose, twisted now into self-preservation. We confront him, Juliet declared, her voice steel. Before he poisons them all. Brielle hesitated, her artist's soul recoiling from confrontation. And if it backfires? Your family, they're not just people, they're your anchor. You're my anchor now, Juliet whispered, cupping Brielle's face. The kiss that followed was fierce, a vow sealed in the dying light. They tracked Louise to a trendy rooftop bar in the Hotel EME, where the family afterparty pulsed with laughter and clinking glasses. The ascent in the glass elevator felt like Judgment Day, Seville's dome sprawling below like a map of their impending fall. Louise was mid-cocktail, surrounded by aunts and uncles, when they appeared, Juliet's hand firm in Brielle's, a united front. His smirk faltered. Cousin. Didn't expect the show tonight. Delete it, Louise. Now. Juliet's tone was low thunder, drawing eyes. Elena, at a nearby table, froze mid-sip, her wineglass hovering. Louise laughed, but it cracked. Or what? Family's better off knowing the truth. Grandma's secret. It's in the blood, huh? Brielle stepped forward, her voice steady as a canvas stroke. Truth isn't a weapon. It's a bridge. And you're burning it. The bar hushed. Marco appeared at Juliet's side, his face a storm of conflict. He'd followed her GPS, piecing together the betrayal. Louise, enough. Jules, talk to Mom. She's breaking apart in the lobby. But Elena was already there, pushed forward by the crowd's murmur, her face ashen under the string lights. Juliet Marie Harper, she hissed, eyes darting to their joined hands. What is this? The air thickened, charged like the eve of a furious storm. Juliet's heart hammered, danger wasn't fists or headlines, it was this, the unraveling of the only world she'd known. This is me, Mom. This is love. And Rosa. She hid hers. I won't. Gasps rippled. Sophia clutched her pearls, Tomas muttered a prayer. Brielle squeezed Juliet's hand, a lifeline in the fray. Elena staggered back, tears carving tracks through her makeup. You walked into this. For her. After everything we've. For me, Juliet cut in, voice breaking but unbowed. For the woman Abuela could have been, if fear hadn't won. The rooftop spun into chaos, shouts, tears, Luis slinking away like the coward he was. Marco pulled Elena aside, his whispers a buffer, but the damage bloomed, family fracturing like fault lines under Kansas soil. As sirens wailed distant from the city below, Juliet and Brielle fled into the night, the elevator's descent a plunge into the unknown. What now? Brielle breathed, rain starting to speckle the glass. Juliet pulled her close. We build our own family. Starting tonight. But dawn brought the backlash, emails from aunts decrying deviance, Marco's apologetic call promising to fix this, Elena's silence louder than any scream. Juliet's inbox overflowed with rejections, editors pulling gigs, whispers of her instability. Seville, once a canvas of wonder, now felt like a cage. In Brielle's studio, they barricaded the door, the world shrinking to sketches and shared breaths. I walked into danger for a secret, Juliet murmured, tracing Brielle's jaw. But what they discovered. It's us. Unbelievable, unbreakable us. Yet as the sun climbed, a knock echoed, soft, insistent. Marco, alone, his face etched with the weight of bridges half-burned. Marco's arrival cracked the studio's fragile peace like sunlight through shutters. He stood in the doorway, rain-dampened shirt clinging to his frame, a man caught between loyalties. Jules, I drove all night. Mom's a wreck, won't eat, won't pray. The family's split, half want to disown you, half are whispering about Rosa like she's a saint now, not a sinner. Brielle busied herself with tea in the tiny kitchenette, giving them space, but her presence was a quiet anchor, her hand brushing Juliet's as she passed a mug, a reminder that love didn't demand solitude. Juliet sank onto the sofa, exhaustion etching lines around her eyes. And you? Where do you land in this mess? He rubbed his neck, the gesture pure farm boy awkwardness. I'm landing with you. Always have. But Jules. This isn't just about coming out. It's Rosa's ghost stirring up old hurts. Sophia remembered more last night, after the rooftop. Abuela didn't just hide a love, she hid a child. Your aunt, actually. Sophia's half-sister, given up because of the scandal. Franco's Spain, the church, they called it unnatural, forced the separation. The revelation hit like a gut punch. Juliet's mind reeled, threads of the hunt weaving into a tapestry of pain, Rosa's letter, the orphanage lead, the parish whispers. Sophia knows. And she never said. Shame's a heavy chain, Marco said softly. But seeing you stand up there, hand in hand. It broke something open. Mom's flying back to Kansas tomorrow. Alone. Says she needs to pray on it. But she left this. He pulled a small, velvet pouch from his pocket, inside, a tarnished locket, engraved with Rosa's initials. From the hope chest. For the daughter who dares, the note said. Juliet's fingers trembled as she opened it, twin miniatures, faded sepia, Rosa, young and fierce-eyed, beside a woman with Brielle's curls and defiant smile. Her love, she whispered. The cycle wasn't curse, it was inheritance, a legacy of courage deferred. Brielle peered over her shoulder, her breath catching. She looks like us. In that moment, the studio felt sacred, walls echoing with unspoken forgiveness. Marco stayed for lunch, humble tortilla española and stories swapped like olive branches. He met Brielle properly, no shadows, her easy laugh drawing out his tales of calving seasons and midnight feedings. You're good for her, he told Brielle as Juliet stepped out for air. Jules has always run toward fire. You're the rain that keeps it from consuming her. By evening, he'd gone, promising to buffer the family storm. But Juliet knew tempests didn't dissipate overnight. That night, as thunder rumbled over the Sierra Morena, she and Brielle lay tangled in sheets scented with lavender from the window box. What if they never come around? Juliet voiced the fear aloud, her head on Brielle's chest, heartbeat a steady drum. Brielle's fingers combed through her hair. Then we grieve what was, and build what is. Art teaches that, erasing isn't forgetting, it's making space for color. The days that followed were a delicate dance, Juliet pitching stories from the studio's scarred desk, her bylines now laced with vulnerability, essays on inherited silences, loves that spanned oceans. Brielle's canvases evolved, portraits of two women against Seville's spires, submitted to a queer art collective in Barcelona. Their love deepened in the quiet rhythms, morning markets for figs and manchego, evenings where guitar buskers in Plaza del Salvador became their soundtrack. But conflict simmered, bubbling over in late July when Elena's letter arrived, postmarked Kansas. No email, no call, just ink on cream stationery, her script precise as a confessional. Mi corazón, I burned the first letter because it mirrored my fears, for you, for us. Rose's sin became mine, passed like an heirloom. I see now, your bravery isn't rebellion, it's the grace I denied her. Forgive an old woman's blindness. Come home, with her. We have bridges to mend. Tears blurred the words. Juliet read it aloud to Brielle, voice cracking on grace. It's not absolution, she said, folding the paper like a talisman. But it's a start. The high tide of their drama crested in August, during the Feria de Agosto, a riot of lights and laughter that masked Seville's underbelly of old grudges. Juliet's family, those who'd stayed neutral, organized a tentative gathering, not at the villa, but neutral ground, a private patio in the Real's Alcazars. Elena flew in with Marco and Sofia, the air thick with unspoken indictments. Juliet walked in with Brielle's hand in hers, no armor this time, just a simple linen shirt and the locket at her throat. The group was small, 10 faces, weathered by jet lag and regret. Elena rose first, her embrace tentative, then fierce. You look like her, she whispered, touching the locket. Stronger. Sophia shared her piece next, a yellowed photo from the orphanage days, Rosa's lover holding a swaddled infant, eyes alight with forbidden joy. She was my sister, Isabella. I searched for years, but the records. Gone. Like her. The patio fell silent, the weight of lost lives pressing down. Brielle spoke then, her voice a gentle current. Loss isn't the end. It's the soil for something new. Juliet showed me that, teaching me to love without apology. Heads nodded, Marco's wife, pregnant and glowing, squeezed his hand. Even Tomas, the gruff uncle, raised a glass, to secrets that set us free. Not all mended overnight, Luis's absence spoke volumes, a cousin's email still stung with distance. But as fireworks bloomed over the Alcazar that night, Juliet pulled Brielle to a shadowed alcove, their kiss a quiet revolution. We walked into danger, she murmured, and came out whole. The aftermath unfolded like a slow-blooming rose. Juliet returned to New York in September, but not alone. Brielle came too, visa in hand, studio dreams transplanted to Brooklyn lofts. Elena visited for Christmas, rosary beads now joined by a pride pin Marco had slipped her. Rose's full story emerged in Juliet's memoir, Shadows in Seville, a bestseller that funded scholarships for queer artists in Andalusia. Years later, at 39, Juliet stood in that same Triana Plaza where it began, Brielle sketching beside her, now with silver threads in her curls, their daughter, Rosa Isabella, toddling at their feet, chasing pigeons with Elena's unbridled laugh. The city, once a stage for secrets, hummed with ordinary miracles, a journalist who'd traded chases for home, a painter whose colors now included family portraits. She'd walked into danger for a secret, all right. But what her family discovered wasn't unbelievable, it was inevitable. Love, in all its dramatic, heartfelt glory, had rewritten their map. And in Seville's eternal sun, they thrived.